Distinguished faculty, if you could please take your seat. I hope you enjoyed the break and the refreshments. But we were ahead of schedule, and now we're back on track. Okay. The next session will be delivered jointly by myself and by my dear friend Ian Gaither, who you heard from earlier. And we're going to be talking about the next theme. So far, we've talked about micro-credentials, generative AI, and policy for higher education institutions. And now we're going to talk about the hybrid learning. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to be not only your MC, but also to be representing the Applied and Experiential Learning Department and the work we've been doing on this subject. Now, a bit about me. When I started my career as an instructional designer, and I was always thinking like it was always about online learning. So I came from this mindset that we were converting traditional face-to-face learning directly to online. And it wasn't until I moved to Qatar 10 years ago, not at UDST, that I learned, well, online's not as accepted in different parts of the world, and face-to-face still has a very important piece in the puzzle of learning. And this caused a disruption for me because I'll only design training and learning and learning experiences for online. And then I had to learn how to deliver that same learning and engaging and interactive learning environment in a face-to-face setting. And I basically learned that the key to this is to deliver it in a hybrid learning environment. And in here, this disruption happened a lot, and I'm at UDST during COVID, where you were forced to basically do all your teaching using Zoom, Teams, and you probably looked a bit like this guy. You know, it was stressful for parents because I had my son doing online learning. It was not an enjoyable experience. You know, and it was mainly because we were using teleconference communication tools that were used for meetings to trying to teach students, and there were no guidelines, there was no how-to, and it caused a disruption. And then we did for like a year-ish, year and a half, and we slowly came back, and then it was like, oh, thank God we don't have to do that again. We can come back to the classroom and talk to our students. But what we want to do is to create an interactive learning environment, an engaging experience. It doesn't matter where you do it, in a physical context or a virtual context, and it allows us to basically create a hybrid context. And if we do, and this is where the hybrid learning piece comes in, and using the wonderful powers of AI, as you learned from Dr. John Paul in the earlier session, we can imagine what this could physically look like, such as the picture behind me, which I made with DALL-E, by just chucking in a couple prompts for what could a hybrid learning look like. You know, because there's a lot of different assumptions and people have different understandings of what should be online, what should be in a virtual space, you know, so we can talk about using virtual reality and so forth. So this talk, although it's titled a how-to guide, and to present to you some of the work that we're doing at the university, it's important to understand what it is first, why do we need to do it, first of all, and then how we do it. So this talk is basically going to answer these questions. So hybrid learning, although there's many definitions, there's no actual exact definition for it. Sometimes people use the word blended, you know, we hear distance learning. There's lots of different terms, and people mean different experiences, and they mean different things and so forth. But essentially, when it comes down to it, hybrid learning is just an instructional approach where we combine face-to-face with online learning. But the goal in both of them, as I said earlier, is we want to create an interactive and engaging learning experience, which is, you know, for us, it's based around the applied and experiential learning model by Cole, where we do it in an online, in a face-to-face setting, but we also need to create that same way that we give, you know, concrete experience, reflective questions, you know, to then create an abstract conceptualization of it. So what does this hybrid learning model mean for higher education institutions? Because as soon as I start talking to some of you in my faculty development sessions, there's always a bit of concerns, you know, to sort of let go of control of the classroom. And because it's kind of a new way of teaching, but it's also a new way of working and in the real world environment. So essentially, when we talk about hybrid learning, we're talking about the contact time, the online learning activities, kind of removing some of these face-to-face learning activities and putting them to online. And to give you an exact number, right now we are working together with the Ministry of Education and the leadership here to sort of figure out. But as a general rule of thumb, typically a hybrid learning will look at having 15 to 49% of online learning activities. And we give this broad range to give it the flexibility. So, because I know when I start talking to some of you faculty members about, switching to incorporating online learning activities, we automatically think it's going fully online. And they're like, no, that's not the point. The whole point of hybrid is we're using both learning approaches. So when you look at what are the possibilities of different hybrid learning delivery scenarios in a typical higher education institution, we typically have in a face-to-face setting lectures and labs right now. You use explicit instruction in your lectures. You'll do maybe a flipped classroom and sometimes, do some group learning, some pair work, kind of applying the AEL model. And then we have a lab component, which is very important for a lot of the colleges. And then we bring in the online learning piece. Now, what happens to the rest? How does this course in a face-to-face learning environment become hybrid? And now we can sort of refocus a lot of the lecture element of a course and assign it to the online learning. You don't have to do as much lecturing. A lot of those lecturing can actually be done online. And there's different ways you can adapt this learning model. One way would be to do a bi-weekly class only. Instead of meeting every week, you do lectures one week and you're off the next week. But then you always have the online learning to supplement and to replace. So on the off weeks, it allows the students to basically learn asynchronously on their own through self-learning learning experiences. From a registration, administration point of view, this is excellent. You can very easily know what rooms you need to book for a class, but it may not be the best way for teaching learning point of view. That's why another approach is to shorten the weekly lectures and to use the online learning to complement and supplement it. So this now allows you as an instructor in your lecture to really focus on the group learning and not as much as the explicit instruction. The explicit instruction can be covered through the online learning element. Have the students complete the readings, but not just read, and by readings, I mean complete online learning experiences that are both engaging and interactive, that motivate them so they come to the class prepared. And eventually, we can remove the lecture piece altogether, but keep the lab element. So you see, there's lots of different scenarios that you can do with a hybrid learning model. And it's not like we don't want to impose, handcuffs on yourself. They say you must do classes this week and you must do online learning this day and so forth. The whole point is to adapt it to your requirements, and that's the beauty of it. And me having worked on both ends of the spectrum and in the middle, I can guarantee you it's like an amazing way for your learners to achieve their student success outcomes. So next question, you probably all have, Alain, if you start to take away some class time, my head of department is going to think I'm not doing any work for an hour a week and is going to give me more work to do. He'll probably give me another course. And that's not that. So how does your role change as an instructor in a hybrid learning environment? And the truth of the matter is, the answer is no. You should not be assigned more work. The whole point is that you are still, although there's no class time, there are online learning activities that need to happen. How you motivate and engage the students in an online environment through the learning management systems. You need to create this community, this online community. We're used to doing it in our own personal lives, interacting with different topics that we're interested in. And in the online learning piece, it needs to happen as well. So earlier today, we had the wonderful Dr. Hiba Sabri sort of mention the hybrid learning projects that we're running as pilot projects, and that's the perfect way that UDST does and brings in this innovative and new way of doing things, is that we first pilot it before we decide to launch the whole thing. And then the pilots, we sort of test and see what works, what doesn't work, so we can establish the standards, the processes, guidelines, etc., to help launch it globally at the university. So we have this course that affects all the colleges, Effective Learning and Entrepreneurship. And it's been a pleasure working with the College of General Education. So thank you very much, Dr. Rosie, to you and your team, and this is a brand new course. that impacts all the students. It's actually, I wish I had a course like this when I was in university, because it allows you, it's when you're learning to work with peers and groups, you're learning kind of things outside of the classroom and how to interact, all real world skills. And then we have with the College of CCIT, discrete structures, a very challenging, abstract, conceptual topic. And thank you very much, Dr. Zakaria, to you and Dr. Abdulatif Shikfa for all the work working along you guys on this project. I was a computer scientist at first before I was an instructional designer. I took this course when I was in university in my first semester. It was very challenging because it's a very abstract and conceptual way of thinking, how to solve problems. And it's math oriented. For computer scientists, we all know that's not their favorite subject. So we've been doing these hybrid learning projects here at the university for both these courses, and we're basically going to be piloting them come January with the faculty, and AEL will be supporting them, and we'll learn from this experience. So when we look at the environment for hybrid learning, the classroom's all right, but the online activities for us at UDST is mainly in our learning management system. Now, the way we look at the learning management system, it's not geared really for the online learning element. There's no way to know, okay, how do I know what the students have done? Even myself as this is a student view. How do I know what do I need to do? I need a bit of sort of guidance to guide me through, but I also need the flexibility to do kind of experience my own way I learn things. And by simply applying a few little checkboxes in the settings and working with our wonderful team at D2L, we can start to change the way the LMS is set up and gear it towards a hybrid learning environment. Now here you're starting to see there's check marks of what the students completed, what he needs to do next. Things are organized by modules and so forth. But we can also use it to upload all your classroom resources that you use in your classroom time. And then here's another example of what the LMS view is, putting different pieces of content, but I have a tracking mechanism. I know what module I'm at. I know my percentage of completion and so forth. So one of the key things that we build with online learning and to put on an LMS is what we call asynchronous learning experiences. Now that basically means this is your standard SCORM package, self-guided learning that the student can do on their own at any time. They can refer to it at any point in time. Because right now, in the face-to-face learning environment, the student, if they don't come to the class, if they don't have notes, if they don't, if they miss all that, they have nothing really to fall back on. They might have a textbook or they have to borrow their friends' notes from class. Now, with developing this content for the course and putting it in an asynchronous learning experience and uploading to LMS, the students can refer to it. But it's not just about taking pictures and text and just chucking it there and packaging it together. It's about creating a learning experience, following a micro-learning design, creating interactive, engaging experiences, and so forth. Using very visually appealing things that help support the learning. Here we have our good colleague from Student Central Services, delivering part of a lecture. We didn't take a whole lecture. We chunked it down in a micro-learning video and put that part there. This also frees up a lot, especially for this course. There's lots of different guest speakers that come for this course. This course has, for example, 1,200 students I think have to complete it this year. Now it frees up Student Central Services to actually support the students. They don't have to travel. So they don't have to travel all around the campus, go to the different lecture halls and so forth. The students have this content there. But then the class time can be used to basically, okay, you completed the online learning activities. Okay, now let's apply it through group work, through pair work. Let's actually have that experiential learning experience. And obviously we include, and then here's another example of the for the College of Computer and then CCIT. Can remember there. Here's our discrete structures course that we'll be piloting in the winter. Now you'll see we took kind of a different approach, and that's the beauty of hybrid learning. You can take different learning structures, different instructional methods and media, instructional strategies. For this course, we know a lot of topics require a lot of explanation of these conceptual principle-based theories, and to sort of wrap our heads around. So we developed short micro-learning videos on a lot of these subjects. And it wasn't just about, creating a video and having Dr. Shikfa come in and record. We used, the power of AI to clone his voice and to adapt the script because we know how busy he is. And I can assure you, Dr. Shikfa, you sound just as good in AI than in the real life. But it's also about, okay, we put the content there, but we break it down with feedback on opportunities, and so forth. And this is the beauty. We apply our instructional design expertise from AEL, working with subject matter experts from the different colleges as faculty as yourselves, to create an engaging, interactive learning experience. So that's the asynchronous piece. Another piece of the puzzle with online hybrid learning is synchronous learning. Let's look back at this Zoom, lecture, but actually let's do it properly. Let's not just invite, some 100 students to a lecture. We do this, we automatically turn our camera off. We're just sort of listening. We're not engaged, and so forth. But let's actually plan these things. There's so many things you can do with these technologies. You can use polls, quizzes, have a live Q&A, breakout rooms, delegate some of the responsibility maybe to the leading students to run these breakout rooms. That's the whole idea. Try and mimic what we kind of do in the classroom using the technology as the platform. Now, I'm reaching to another piece. Yeah, this is good, Alain. You're taking our PowerPoint slides, you're filming our lectures, and you're packaging this into these wonderful, interactive learning experiences. But how can we make more engagement? What else can we do? How about the VR, game-based learning? What else can we do for that? And for this piece, I'm going to invite my good friend, Mr. Gaither, to showcase you how you can use these different tools and technologies in a hybrid learning context. I will return.
Thank you so much. So I thought it would be interesting to inform this discussion on different learning models and engagement with a bit of a case study. And this is just a short story of a project I've been involved in over the last 4 years, which included, of course, some of the COVID period, working with the Royal Canadian Navy. And our Navy is one of Canada's oldest institutions, and they have an incredible setup, but they suffer from some of the same types of issues that many educational institutions do. They're set up in a very traditional manner. We've got classroom instruction, and then they have hands-on experience in the form of simulators, very expensive, a $20 million ship simulator, and ships and different learning aids. But part of the challenge is that as students move through the system, they end up waiting. They end up waiting to get to these simulators. They end up waiting to get to this hands-on application, which we know is where learning actually is cemented and comes together and becomes real. So they have a very traditional system, and this is no fault of their own. This is how much education, and maybe even here, is set up. We have buildings, we have classrooms, we have laboratories, right? So you move from one to the next. But somewhere between these two places, there is a learning gap, and as people wait to get into simulators or into real equipment, whatever they learned in the classroom starts to fade. Maybe they didn't learn it in the first place because they learned it through a lecture. They didn't learn it through application. And so what happens is by the time they get to that moment to actually apply the skill, they realize they don't have it. And so they end up doing a lot of initial learning in a simulator, which is supposed to be made for integrated scenarios with other sailors, and they spend a lot of time actually looking at where the buttons are and relearning the basics. So green button, here we go. So just going from the current state, the problem state of students being underprepared to apply their learning, and as a result becoming disengaged. In fact, so disengaged at certain times that they leave the organization. They thought they were signing up for adventure, and they ended up spending most of their time, waiting to actually get to apply their skills. So as a desired state, we want something where they can actually apply their knowledge, build their skills in the real world. And hybrid learning is part of that solution. And so what I'd like to actually show you, and I'll just put up a slide here, I forget this in this morning's discussion, we talked about, technology is not something we start with. We don't start with, we have a technology, we want to apply it. We start with the problem. And then we see which technologies are applicable, what methods are applicable to that problem. So in the case of the types of topics that we were engaged to deal with, they were really basic sailing skills, navigation skills, collision avoidance skills. These are cognitive skills, decision-making skills, but also perceptual skills. So in this picture, for instance, we're looking at from inside VR where you can see another ship is coming. So there's the perceptual aspect of being able to understand what's around you, building situational awareness, and then knowing how to use the available tools, the navigational tools, radar and compasses and other tools to figure out what you're supposed to do and apply the appropriate procedures. So this is just an inside look of some of the types of things that we're developing. Now we'll take an outside look. It was exciting, Alain, to see some of the design patterns that are being developed here. And by design patterns, I mean different ways that content can be experienced. And actually, in this morning's discussion of micro-credentials, we talked a bit about the need for having content and learning experiences that can be applicable to different contexts. They can be, in this case, one of the needs was for sailors to be able to prepare for a simulator session. So before they go into the big simulator that takes 6 people to run and they have to be scheduled weeks in advance to get into, they can spend some time preparing. They can do it from home in this case, especially during COVID. That was one of the things that was very useful. And this the headset in this picture, this is a less than $500 US piece of equipment. So this means that an organization is able to acquire and kind of set up a library where people can check out items and then select from a virtual library of skills, very specific skill-based training interactions. So they could prepare for something, or they could use it as a review. So after having gone through the training flow, as they're waiting to maybe actually get on a real ship, and they start to feel, I want to spend a bit of time reviewing the rules of the road, collision avoidance or something. Whereas before they had no options or possibilities to go and book one of these simulators. This gives them a lot of learner control to determine what they need and go and experience it. So actually a very powerful tool. A more traditional use of this, one of the design criteria is that we didn't just want to create distance learning or self-paced learning, but something that could be employed in a classroom environment. And so here what we're looking at is a sailor has been called up by the instructor and has been asked to put on the headset. And you can see in the background, we're looking at a Polaris, a type of compass, that he's being instructed on how to use. So the other students are watching. He's actually interacting with it and learning how to manipulate it and to read the indications. And I mean, this is very engaging for a few reasons, but not least amongst them is that the students realize that at any given moment, they may be called up to actually do something in front of people. They may be asked to actually interact with a piece of equipment. So it keeps them on their toes. Also, we know that learning is very much can be a social experience. And we wanted to sort of harness some of that social opportunity. So we designed it in a way that we could have the classrooms split into pairs or small groups where one person has the headset on and is going through a challenge. These are game-based challenges, short 10 to 15 minutes. And the other person is watching what they're doing on a laptop or a tablet. And what this does is it sets up a kind of nice collaborative approach between people where one person is helping the other. They may be just observing and giving advice. They may be looking at a procedure in a book, but really providing them an opportunity to collaborate in teams and then mix up the teams as well so that, they get a chance to work with their teammates. this is a photo of a cave. The VE stands for virtual environment. It's basically like a virtual reality headset that we can all be inside of together. And actually, yesterday we went to the National Museum, which is an incredible experience. And a lot of that is kind of like a virtual environment as they're projecting on the walls around us. And this is very much like that. It's a room that we can be in that can, like a VR headset, project an experience. And then so they could be on the bridge of a ship or in any other environment. This actually provides an incredible opportunity for people to experience something together in the same environment and to connect to other players with other headsets who could be standing right outside of the cave, or they could be on the other side of the country, which actually gives us a great opportunity to engage different instructors and mentors who may not be necessarily in the same place as we are. And finally, we wanted to build this experience together. So a very typical instructional design of 10, 15 years ago, was that we would kind of analyze as much as we could and then design something and kind of throw it over the wall for implementation. But in the last few years, there's been a move towards a more iterative approach. And a lot of this comes from game design. And in the world of games, engagement is key. Because the moment someone is disengaged with a game, they've got a million other things they could do, other games, YouTube, whatever, and they're gone. And in education, we've sometimes have a bit of a free ride in that we have a captive audience. They kind of have to be there. But when we want to engage them and get their buy-in and get their inputs, there's a great opportunity through play testing to collaborate. And playtesting, that term comes from the world of games. And so what we did is we actually, with these sailors, not only had them in the classroom doing the experiences that we designed, but getting their feedback in real time and working, myself as a designer, project manager who was keeping track of the scope and the budget, and a programmer, the guy in the front there wearing the standard programmer's hat, were in real time taking their feedback and making changes. What kinds of things technically, glitches did you run into, bugs? What things did you have trouble understanding? What was not clear? Where did you get lost? Where were you frustrated? What do you want to see more of? What more support do you need? And this actually had two benefits. One is that it helps us take our solution from a 65% complete to launch us forward in time and help us very quickly get to a much higher level of readiness in a way that really reflects their needs, not just what we thought during design or analysis, but what they tell us in real time. And the other, which is another important aspect of this, I think, is that it helped us actually engage in the integration into the school and the change management aspect, because we're not only testing what's going on inside of the headset, we're actually prototyping and testing the way it could be integrated into the classroom environment. Some of these pictures I just showed were some of the first times this had ever been done in the Navy. And so it went a long way to proving that it's a possible solution that could be actually used. And by engaging the sailors and course directors and instructors and getting their feedback was a very powerful way to get their engagement in the process and their willingness to take the risk of incorporating some of these technologies into their classroom. I think that's all for me, but I just wanted to share just a bit of a case study of some of the different ways that engagement can be developed. Thank you. Okay. Back to you.
Thank you, Ian.
All right.
Thank you very much, Ian. I hope you guys enjoy that, and it kind of showed you, some similar ways, although it's coming from an industry-specific area, but how we can use the technology and supplement it through our hybrid learning model. So that was the what. It's trying to give you an understanding now. Okay, I get a better understanding of what hybrid learning is. Are people nodding their heads? No? Yes? It's good. And so it kind of shows you the key thing about it is kind of the flexibility and the different ways you can do things with it. And that's the beauty of it. Now let's start answering the question of why do higher education institutions need to do this? Now, besides our leadership and our strategy telling us to do it, there are actually concrete reasons as to why you should do this. A big one is that these are just some of the ones that it does. A big one that it does from a learning perspective, it gives the students flexibility. Not all students in a higher education can attend every single class. Things happen. And if they don't attend the class, what do they have to fall back on? And it gives a student different way to experience the same learning outcome through different methods. It enhances the learning experience. It makes the instructional materials available at all times. If the student doesn't come to class, doesn't take notes, he kind of just has a one slider that explains everything. But the actual experiential learning content that you guys do in the classroom is the key. And now if we sort of transfer and convert some of this information and make it available online, it's always there to help them study. That follows the whole spatial repetition of microlearning. And another thing from a university point of view, it has expands the institution's reach. It puts the university out there on the map. And that's where the competitiveness and the innovation, and also it prepares the students for the future. They are going to be working remotely. It's the way technology and the AI world, everything is changing. After COVID, most people didn't want to go back every day to the office. Some people still wanted to sort of have this remote work. And if we put the students in that same learning context, it'll prepare them for it. And it makes it more of a student-centered learning. So now on to the final piece, final question. How do you design this? Where do we even begin? The good news is you have the Applied Experiential Learning Department at the University of Doha for Science and Technology. We have instructional designers, we have educational technologists, experiential learning specialists, our LMS expert, Mr. Vince, that we all know, who makes sure the LMS is running for all your courses. And we have now the guidance of Dr. Hiba Sabri and her vision to support all of you. We're here and we know how to do these things and we can work with you. It's been a pleasure working with the two colleges and we look forward to supporting you more. So if you want to learn more how to do this, reach out. And as you know, we need to start. There's a planning side to this. Planning is very important. I'm not just talking about your course syllabi, with a very high level course learning outcome. Because if we don't plan, basically he who fails to plan is planning to fail. A very important quote. Many people claim ownership of this, so I'm not going to put where I got it from. But this is the thing. Hybrid learning, it requires time for planning. And we need to be an integrated team with the colleges, the AEL department. It's an entire ecosystem. It's not just those two departments. It's even the implementation from the registrar's office and how, will student be aware. We have to educate kind of everyone of this new way of learning. And as you can see, this is a very simplified version of actually how we go from start to end. We follow a typical design framework called the ADDIE model, from analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation. But we also do lots of sort of rapid prototyping, where we know and that's what we did with a lot of the pilot courses. We kind of tried different things. And so we would design one thing and working with the faculty, give them opportunity to give feedback, pilot tested with other faculty members. And that's another way that we work. So it's a very integrated approach. Now, one important piece that we do with these type of projects is we develop a course design document. This is essentially acts like a blueprint of how this hybrid learning course will be delivered. How will we design, these interactive and engaging learning experiences? Do I want to use VR? Do I want to use micro-learning videos? Do I want to have synchronous learning experiences? How will the engagement, where does the experiential learning side come in? So we need to do this so we kind of have a blueprint, so we know exactly what we're building. And this is another thing. If you've come to my session, I do micro-learning and I'm a preacher of this design approach. I tell my colleagues at work, you can micro-learn anything, trust me. And that's the whole point. Micro-learning design, and I'm sure, and I know from talking to some of you, you kind of already do it naturally, and you don't sort of realize you're doing it. But the whole point of micro-learning is you want to design and deliver instruction in short bursts of content to a specific learning outcome. If you start putting, let's say, a short learning experience as a 5-minute learning experience, whether it be a video, it could be a game, it could be anything, and you start to map all of this out, it'll basically tie in very nicely into the hybrid learning model. And this is how we basically built these 2 pilot courses. We applied the micro-learning design to everything, and we kind of took the content from the instructors through what was available, for going to the class and filming them, and we start to map out all the content into a micro-learning scalar diagram. And then we sort of pick and choose, is this the best instructional media strategy method to teach this? And this is how it kind of looks. It ends up being this giant spider diagram that kind of shows you for every single topic. Now, when you start to say, hey, a 15-week course, we have course learning outcomes, and then if you got to break those down into sub learning objectives with activities, it gets mind-boggling. It's like a huge spider web. And the idea is you chunk it, you make it into small packages. Just first tackle, okay, week 1, what needs to happen there? And where does the content come in? What's the CLOs that need to happen, the student learning outcomes, and so forth. I've seen my good colleague from College of Engineering, Mr. Luai Hussein, how he plans his courses. He has a big, I don't know if you see this big rollout, a laminated week scheduler, and he puts Post-its. This is essentially a way of he's already applying this himself. So there's different ways to do it. And the good news is, as Dr. Hiba mentioned, we're already building the support mechanisms in there. We're going to have the hybrid learning handbook, the guidelines to sort of tell you how to do it. Because we don't, with this type of project and this type of learning experience, and like, Dr. John Paul says, you can't prescribe it exactly. Like all online learning at UDST must happen like this. No, you can't. You need to give flexibility. How do we give you flexibility of what you do in your classroom right now? For the experiential learning model, there are different ways to teach and train. The same goes for hybrid learning. We can sort of pick and choose different instructional methods, learning structures, instructional media, and so forth. But then in here, this will be an evolving document. We'll add to it. And as a start, we already built all the templates for every college with the beautiful color scheme. So marketing's very happy, I hope, that it meets their requirements. But, it kind of gives that brand identity of UDST. And these are already a ready thing to start. And we can already start packaging your content for it. So this brings us to the closing. I think I'm on time. I hope so. But so yeah, we're basically piloting hybrid learning for you. We're figuring it out together, but it can really help achieve our student success and basically foster engagement and enhance the learning experience. And it's the way that we want to go with this model. But a few key things to remember: plan ahead. Consider your time commitment, because I know we've already had a couple of requests from the colleges, and you think I have a magic button, or Dr. Hiba has it, and she can push it and poof, hybrid learning course ready to launch. So this is why we need to have a conversation with you, and but talk to the faculty that we've already been working with us. We're there to basically help you and support you, and we'll do everything in our power to help you achieve this goal. And also, good thing, think out of the box. This is an opportunity to try and do different things. We know how our learners in the classroom, we know our students, and we know what they are. One thing I do know is if it's not graded, they will not do it. We all know that. So, okay, if I'm going to sort of bring online learning experience, I need to assign a grade to it, as an example. And finally, reach out to AEL. We're here to help, and we'll hear it on this journey together. Thank you. Questions? Not to me, you can ask Ian as well. Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. This is where I said, it's an ecosystem. It's not just between us and the college. This is why we have to work with the registrar. We have to get Dr. Rashid's approval to basically remove a class time of that particular course at that point. And then when we do that, we're also going to have to figure out the attendance side of things, how that will work. And D2L also tracks a lot of the learning, like I showed you. We're able to, the participation, the online participation, not the class time too. Thanks, Dr. Hiba. Yeah, and that's the key thing. Remember the 15 to 49%? Yeah, that's like when you're going to take, you basically lose a part of that class time and you replace it with online learning activities. That's the whole point. It's the contact time. That's when you get into the hybrid. We're not saying that students, when you're going to go to every single class. Oh, and on top of going every single class, here, go do a whole bunch of learning experiences online at home. Because it's not. Yes, go ahead, Hiba. I think there's a microphone. Turn it on. There's a button. The young lady has a microphone for you, Dr. Hiba.
Thank you for this question. The guidelines for attending online learning is the same as the guidelines when attending in classroom course. So the guidelines are the same. It comes from the university, right? So not only we have guidelines, but also in D2L you can track who attended, who did not attend, the time spent on the designed learning assets inside the course. So there's plenty of opportunities to see whether the students attended actually or not. So this requires training as well for instructors. Before we launch any hybrid learning course, they need to be trained on how to use the online components and how they track all this learners' progress and so forth.
And further to that, like with the two pilots, like the AEL team will be supporting the faculty on those pilot courses. I've been doing already with some faculty with the Coursera pilots, and it's because it's learning something new for everyone.
Alain, if I could just comment on that, sure.
Girard.
Yeah. So I can answer that question for you in the back. So this past semester, I piloted hybrid learning in my Economics 2010 course. It's a course that had a high drop-fail withdrawal rate. And so what I did when I worked with Alain, we built the video modules there to support the learning in my course. I took videos from different universities in Canada, the United States, that supported the concepts that I was teaching in my course. I included, changed the evaluation framework in one category weight, which was quizzes. In this course, I have 7 evaluation instruments, okay? But in this one section where I ran the pilot, I added 2 more. And the category weight for quizzes is 20%, nor in the other sections, we run 2 quizzes of 10% each. But in this pilot, what I did was I did 4 quizzes. And so the value there was that there were some topics for which I did not give a prior summative type assessment in a couple of topics before either the midterm or the final exam. But by adding those 2 extra quizzes, I was able to give the students an assessment that they could complete on their own, and it also helped prepare them for their final exam. Now, by adding the video pieces in my course, what I did was there's many threshold concepts in that course, and some students struggle with some of those threshold concepts. So the video supported what I was doing in the classroom. The independent learning for them happened outside of the classroom. That course is 5 hours, and we still maintain the 5 hours teaching. The results showed that I can tell you that the results were very strong from the students. I gave them 2 attempts at a quiz, and Alain, we had very, very strong results from the students, and I asked the students to comment on this in their course survey when they were completing them, so we could get some additional feedback on the efficacy of what we did. We only piloted it as it was like a 7-section course. but we piloted only in my first section.
Thank you, Gerard. Always a pleasure. Any other questions? Yes, sir, at the back.
I actually have the mic.
Oh.
If I may proceed. So my question is with the blending of the innovative educational tools such as the VR in education. Have there been considerations towards the limitation of that? For example, some people might be wearing glasses who will have a different kind of experience than those who don't. With fogging or with pressure on ears.
Yeah.
Others with the motion sickness, where some people are able to wear it for a prolonged amount of time, others for a very short amount of time. So how would this vast variation in like the ability to use those additional tools be addressed when a course like that is being designed?
That's a brilliant question. And actually, I'm going to direct it directly to Mr. Ian Gaither, who's been doing these.
Sorry, where are you? Oh, hi. That is a great question, because accessibility, of course, is an important concern as we deliver training. I think your first part of the question was about things like fogging, and these tools are not for everybody, and these are valid concerns. And this is, while VR is actually an old technology, it was around 20 years ago. It kind of went away, and now it's come back really in the last few years. So there are growing pains that are being worked through. But I've seen some good solutions. So, I mean, with things like the fogging issues are often when people have glasses. And a lot of that has to do with head fit, how something fits, because the fogging happens when you breathe and it goes up into your headset. For people with glasses or any sort of corrective, there's inserts that can be put into the headset that give an offset that allow the glasses to fit nicely, so you can go with your glasses. There are also now they sell kits where you can actually have a set of custom lenses that can be inserted, so someone can take off the glasses and have the headset already have the corrective lens in there. And also, I've heard from people who know the technology side better than I do that there's a lot of work being done to actually do correction in the headset somehow. I have no idea how this works, but that they think it's possible to actually to adjust vision in the headset. And to your point about motion sickness, also a major concern, and a lot of that has to do with the way that things are designed. So working with a team of people who had come from the game development world, they're very, very, very aware of what types of interactions do that. If you want to make someone sick, you can very easily. So they have a set of guidelines on how to design something to avoid that. But that being said, there is still a population of people who can only spend a limited time, and that's one of the reasons that to our discussion this morning on micro learning. I think I mentioned we made these 10 to 15 minutes long, maybe maximum a half an hour. The majority of people can be in a simulated virtual reality environment for that amount of time without too much discomfort. But it takes some habituation as well. People get better at it as they do more of it. But it's a very important concern when integrating any kind of new technology like this. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember you top right.
So my question is two-part, mainly for Hiba and for Ian. Can we afford this? How much this simulation cost you? And this is talking about one specific topic in the military, and we know how much military have money. And I'm looking at it from my point of view. I'm a technical teacher. I teach hardware classes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice, amazing. I can have simulation for my student taking part of the motherboard, recognizing the motherboard. Creating a simulation like this, how much would it cost me? Even without fully VR, let's call it will be a video game on the screen where you have a motherboard and click to remove the cable, click to connect the audio. Yeah. And Hiba, are we planning to buy this learning material from a supplier? Do we have a plan for this? Because right now it seems the only option for me as a teacher is recording myself in a few videos, put it there for the student to watch. And maybe if I'm lucky, bringing some videos for the part or the component and a couple of quizzes. Yeah, it's a good start, but
following a traditional teaching and learning methods. So as a starting point, we can, we started with Coursera to complement classroom content, to introduce hybrid learning to UDST. Now we can introduce microlearning, even in the classroom, by the way, not only online, because it's a new approach. So the traditional delivery method where we bring in our slides and go through them, this is not effective. So yes, this requires time, this requires money, but I think we can start baby steps at least, right?
Yeah, I'm doing this currently in my slides. In my slide, I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, small videos, 10 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Which is good.
Just to get the student to it. But again, the students are not engaging. Even though some of the videos it has, this is a question in the exam. And out of the last 3 semesters, I have about 400 students in this course. I only have 30 views in YouTube.
Yeah, that's why AL is there. We're there to support you, to look at the content. We'll look at what you designed. If there are some tweaking required, we'll do that, because the whole point of hybrid learning is to provide engaging and interactive learning to our students. So if you already started this is good, but probably we need to look at what you have designed so we can make our proper recommendations.
Thank you.
Please, I have a point to make.
Yes, sir.
I've been involved in the design and delivery of hybrid courses in science. Students love hybrid courses, and the future is for hybrid courses. This is the way education is going. And the reason is simple, because they get a lot of feedback with hybrid courses. There are many opportunities for formative assessment that are not available in traditional teaching and learning. But the only issue is with the online component, you need to have a high level of autonomy that is on the part of the learner. They need to be independent, and that will take time to happen. Therefore, the faculty need to be there to support students at the time they are online. And there will be students with learning difficulties. They might need to come to campus for that online component. So it is a lot of work on the part of the faculty, but I tell you one thing, the students enjoy it. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's why for some courses, we cannot go 49% for online components. We could start with 10%, with 15%. Maybe we don't need to start with any percentage on the online component if we're targeting a special group of students, that require a lot of help and they are not fully independent. So we need to run our analysis before we say this course is relevant to be a hybrid learning course. So to your point, we can generalize hybrid learning to each and every course in the institution. Yes, I think it would be helpful, but we need to do our homework first.
Thank you, Dr. Hima and Dr. Majid. Anything else? Yes, sir. Well, the flipped classroom is, first of all, it's part of the face-to-face learning. It's just an instructional approach where you're already applying your experiential learning model from Kolb. And hybrid learning is basically taking flipped classroom, which is part of the face-to-face element, and complementing it with online learning experiences that can be synchronous or asynchronous.
Like in flipped classroom, you put recorded videos about the concepts, and just they come to the class, directly apply it.
Yeah, basically
and solve it. So it's kind of like similar, or
it's one of the hybrid learning models.
It's all part.
It falls under it.
Yeah, it's all part. Like it's a learning structure you can use, because in your flipped classroom, you're not going to be doing what we call explicit instruction. You're not going to be lecturing, because the idea, the student will have completed the online learning experiences. Well, they have covered a lot of what you were teaching in the lecturing element, and he can go straight to the group learning, the flipped classroom approach.
Right. Okay.
It's a better use. That's the beauty of it. It gives you that flexibility. It's a better use twice of your time, the students' time. It become engaged.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. If you have any more questions, you know where to find me. Building 9, second floor, AEL department. Email me. Email the AEL department. We're here to support you guys. Thank you very much for your time.